Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to talk about this story. This story has been out for a few days now, but there have been some recent developments. And this story highlights how important it is, number one, for female athletes to come together and simply say no. Simply refuse to participate, refuse to compete against biological males. And say that you're concerned for your safety, and you have every right to say that. So we have a football team in Sheffield in the UK that refused to compete against a biological male after one of their teammates basically broke her knee. Allegedly, because of this person tried to take a shot and the young lady blocked their shot. And reports say, that these women were terrified, absolutely terrified to have to play against a biological male. So what ended up happening is Francesca, the name of this transgender athlete, decided to pull out from the team because the women refused to compete. But now this person is seeking legal action, claiming discrimination.
A trans soccer player threatens to sue for discrimination after rival teams refuse to play against her. Male-born Francesca Needham left her female opponents terrified after she broke the knee of a player while blocking her shot. Several athletes reportedly refused to go on the pitch with her for safety reasons, citing Needham's unmatchable physical strength. After 2 games had been called off, the trans player said she will step down from soccer for the foreseeable future. The athlete referred to the situation as the issue of perceived discrimination, expressing hope that it will be resolved peacefully and promptly.
So Francesca is claiming discrimination because women are in fear for their safety and don't want to have to play against a biological male. And I think, I commend these female athletes. That's exactly what you should do. If you hear of a team that has a transgender athlete, clearly that team has an unfair advantage. Number one, the women on that team, in standing up for women's sports, shouldn't go along with it. Doesn't matter whether your team has the advantage or not. They should not go along with it. But secondly, other teams who have to play against this person should just refuse. Oh, that team has a biological male, we're not playing. Their coaches, if they have any sense, should refuse. My team is not going up against that team as long as that person is on the team, because it's not safe, it's not fair. And this is women's sports. This is sports for females. Create another league, create another division, create another category, so this person can feel included, but they should be in the correct category. Or they can play on the team that matches their biology, just like other trans athletes have actually done. Just to warn you, this segment I'm about to play, there's a lot of references to she this, she that, and it can get a little confusing. You're thinking, who the heck are they talking about? So take a look.
A transgender footballer is considering launching legal action after 4 women's clubs refused to play her over safety concerns. Francesca Needham's physical power on the pitch reportedly left opponents terrified, resulting in teams pulling out of their matches. In one case, a player suffered a season-ending broken knee when blocking a shot from her. Needham has now decided to step down from playing football for the foreseeable future for the sake of her club Rosington Main Ladies. But far from backing down, she is considering pursuing a case of discrimination, arguing she has abided by all Football Association policies on transgender players. It comes as transgender women cricketers have been banned from playing international matches following a 9-month consultation process. The audacity of this woman to try and sue women for not wanting to play with a biological man is just hilarious. But look, women should have been doing this. Well, female athletes should have been doing this from the very beginning, because if that was the case, you wouldn't see, MMA transgender fighters basically bashing women's skulls in because of the rules, right? At the end of the day, biology is what matters in sports. You're playing a body, not an identity. And I can't believe it has to get this far. The fact that she can even consider legal action, that makes me terrified. What do the rules say about this? Can she actually win a case of discrimination for people not wanting to have their knees blown out by playing against a biological man?
Well, that person was just blocking a shot, but obviously our friend Francesca has got a hell of a shot on her. The fact of the matter is that the other female players in this female league were quite clearly terrified of her. We'll have to see what the rules are of that local league. I'm not even quite sure what they are when it comes to professional football. Could a woman play in the Premier League? I don't know. But if the case is that she can play in that women's league, then she is going to have a case here, I would have thought.
Yeah, I would have thought she would have a case. I mean, we've seen, each sporting body has had to take these decisions. We know the Seb Coe and the athletics. He's had to agonise over this for many years. As Esther said in her introduction, cricket is coming to decisions, but each sporting body has to take an individual decision.
Yeah.
I mean, just last week we were talking about, was it a snooker player or a pool player?
Right, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Which is ridiculous, but it's a problem, and a lot of these organisations could be sued if they don't get their rules in order.
I mean, it's... Sorry, am I missing something? I mean, this is just ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, Esther hit the nail on the head. I mean,
the audacity.
The audacity. I mean, it's not about, I don't like you because you're transgender. It's not about I want to give you a hard time, because it's just the basic facts of the matter. That sport is not about identity, as you said. It's about there's a physical element to it. The idea that you would have somebody who's biologically male in a sport of female would clearly be at odds with just logic and common sense.
So I think it's terrible how our language is policed and there's no clarity when we're discussing these matters. Absolutely terrible when you're on TV, even on this platform. There's certain things, certain expressions you can't make. And if you do, your channel will be in trouble. So, I think it's terrible how our language is policed. And yeah, this is why there's confusion. But I don't really see how this person has a case, because the organisation allowed them to play. It's because the women refused to compete if this person was on the pitch. That's why, Francesca had to turn away, because nobody wanted to play against a biological male, because they were terrified after seeing what happened to another female footballer, who had her knee broken. Now, I know some dissenters are going to say, well, sports is dangerous. It happens in sports all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean, that it's because the person is trans. That's the argument they always say. But guess what? This is a biological male who is proven to be built differently, is proven to be stronger than women, higher bone density, greater muscle mass. So coming from a biological male, the damage is going to be greater than from another female. That's the reality of the situation. And it wasn't another female that broke her knee. It was a biological male, because of this ridiculous rule that allows them to compete against and with females. They were allowed to play. It's the women who said no. You're going to sue them because they don't want to have to play against you? Even if by some miracle, Francesca does take legal action and is successful, what do they want the organisation to do when the women refuse to play? Female athletes need to understand their power. Without you, there is no female sports. There's no women's category without you. So it's very encouraging to know that these women had a great impact by simply refusing. And more female athletes need to do that, because apparently there are a lot of biological males playing in women's categories when it comes to football in the UK, when it comes to all these teams. There were at least 4 teams in Sheffield's Women's Football League who boycotted the events. And that's a lot. That's a lot of women refusing to play. So Mexborough Athletics refused to play Rossington Ladies on Sunday night in protest at the presence of Francesca Needman, 31, amid outrage throughout the league at the openly trans player's alleged connection to an incident that has left a rival out of action for several months. I've broken my knee before as a teenager, and recovery is quicker when you're a teenager. I wouldn't wish that pain on anybody. The claim of discrimination is strongly rejected by opposition coaches in the Sheffield and Hallamshire Women and Girls League, who insist they are acting solely in the interest of the players' safety. There are a lot of 16-year-old girls in our league who are getting into football for the first time, said a source familiar with the situation. It's a huge concern, and virtually every team in the league has taken the stance to stick together and not to play against Rossington for safety reasons. That's great to hear. So it sounds like, the coaches, the people behind the teams are also backing these girls. Very, very encouraging to hear. It's not just the athletes themselves. They need the backing of their coaches. I mean, if you care about your athletes, come on. Why would you go along with having biological males play against them? Why would you go along with that? That makes no sense. When you're, the coach of a female team, of a women's team, your priority should be the girls, should be the women. Francesca is arguing discrimination, but that's not the case. It's purely about safety. I've already told my players, we're not playing them. I'd sooner throw away the points. I absolutely commend that coach. The Needham case has potentially far-reaching implications, with at least 50 transgender players understood to be registered in women's leagues across England. 50! That is outrageous. 50. I mean, where does it stop? Where does it stop? If 50 are already registered to play on the women's teams, as far as I'm concerned, women's football is over. If this continues, the Football Association's policy is to decide gender eligibility for players over 16 on a case-by-case basis, with biological males wanting to play in women's football required to show their blood testosterone levels are within the natal female range for an appropriate length of time, so as to minimize any potential advantage. These levels are meant to be checked annually. Absolute load of nonsense. Men and women are not just hormones. I'm assuming Francesca's testosterone levels were within the range, within the acceptable range, because they allowed this person to play. But a woman still ended up with a broken knee. So just because somebody's testosterone is within a certain range, that doesn't take away their strength. That doesn't take away their bone density. That doesn't take away their ability to do more damage to a woman who's built differently from them. Testosterone levels are not the be-all and end-all. And I think this case is a classic example of that. Safety is still a concern, regardless of testosterone levels. And checking levels annually, well, that doesn't sound frequent enough to me. Because within the year, in between checks, their testosterone levels could be through the roof. We had a Zoom call together and you could feel the emotion pouring out, a source said. We've been terrified of saying anything. We don't want to be accused of being transphobic. Exactly. That's the greatest fear that people have in this whole situation. They don't want to be labelled. They don't want to be called a bigot. We don't want the names of our clubs dragged through the mud. It has been like walking on eggshells. And that's exactly what they want. They want everybody to walk on eggshells. If you don't fulfill their needs, and I'm saying they, I mean the people who, the so-called activists. They want you to be walking on eggshells. They don't want you to say how you really feel. They don't want you to say that this is wrong, this is dangerous. They'd rather you tiptoe around them and let them do whatever they want. I've heard of women thinking of deregistering as players because of this, and I'm sure that has happened. A lot of women self-exclude because they don't want to have to compete against a biological male. There are psychological scars. It's not fair. We're volunteer coaches. We don't need this. Wow, they don't even get paid. They have to put up with this. They have to potentially deal with the backlash for standing up for their female athletes. We're responsible for the welfare of our players, and I don't think it's being taken seriously enough. I got to see this situation firsthand. 5 minutes into our game, it was obvious Francesca was biologically male. The league is competitive and physical, but a lot of my harder tackling players were bouncing off this person. They took matters into their own hands and backed out for their own safety. These are strong players in their mid-30s. We were gobsmacked. Even the referee at the time couldn't believe it. This is undeniable. We're allowed to say what the reality of the situation is. And I'm sure these women, maybe at first, they weren't necessarily against this. Maybe they thought, oh, okay. But their fear didn't allow them to go along with this. So that says a lot. Their fear didn't allow them to comply because getting a broken knee, getting injured is a lot more scary than being called a bigot when you know you're not. I'm sure all of these women want the best for Francesca and have nothing against Francesca. This is just a matter of safety. I'm not going to put myself at risk by competing against somebody who is built differently from me and is more likely to injure me than if I was playing against a biological female like myself. That's it. So I sent emails to my league and to the local FA expressing deep concerns, but heard nothing back. Wow. So I called the manager of the team Rossington were playing next. I was really worried. I wanted him at least to be aware so they could make their own choice. Unfortunately, one of their players was injured. A shot from Francesca smashed into her knee. She's out for the rest of the season. It's an absolute nightmare. I feel let down. The injury to that player could have been avoided. Everyone's in a situation where we've had to make this stand. So, now let's turn to another reason why it's not a good idea to allow biological males to compete in women's sports. These biological males are unvetted. You don't normally have to do a psychological evaluation or a background check or speak to a counsellor before you participate in sports, do you? So we don't know the source of their, whatever you want to call it, the source of their identity. We don't know the source of it. In some cases, and not all, it could be a fetish. It could be, some sort of kink. Autogynephilia exists. And are we supposed to pretend that in every single case, it's stunning and brave? It could never be, a guise because of an ulterior motive. In all of these cases, every single one of them are stunning and brave. You saw what happened with Leah Thomas, who was allowed in the locker room, fully exposed to everybody, all the girls there. Comes out later that they're into certain things with their boyfriend or whatever, girlfriend, I don't know. Comes out on Instagram, proudly displaying their fetishes. Things have come out about this person, this footballer, Francesca, that is concerning. Because the women who had to share a locker room with this person, who may have come into close contact with this person, they weren't aware of this. Trans woman footballer forced to quit women's league when rivals refused to play her, has secret past as sex worker, listed as a naughty schoolgirl with a surprise. You can read the rest. So, Fran Needman, 30, earlier this week withdrew from the South Yorkshire-based Rossington Main Ladies for the foreseeable future after players withdrew from facing them over alleged safety concerns last weekend. Now the row has taken a new twist as it has emerged that Needman was previously a prostitute who apparently specialised in cheerleader/schoolgirl scenarios. So Francesca is actually very open about this, hasn't denied it, has admitted it. There's certainly a past there. And Francesca has said that, my opponents were intent on forcing me out. So Francesca said, "It's not an active profile. I accidentally left it up, but it's something I stopped doing before I began playing football. It is something I have done in the past. I will agree, and I'm not going to lie about that. However, everyone has a past, and it shouldn't be brought up out of context. I stopped doing this well before I joined the team and had anything to do with the FA. My personal life is completely separate and distinct from my football life. I have a full-time job now, and that is part of my past." So this person has used their identity for sex work and has focused on depicting schoolgirls. Now, some may argue that that has nothing to do with them playing football. But again, it's another example of how these people aren't vetted. Understandably so, nobody's really vetted when it comes to playing sports. If you're good, you get to play. But for that reason, it makes no sense to allow these people to play with females. That comes with other implications, such as the locker room situation. That's it. I don't think somebody who seeks pleasure in dressing up as a woman should now be allowed in women's locker rooms and have access to women undressing, and changing. I think that's irresponsible. I think it's putting women in a vulnerable position. I think it's triggering to women who may have been through certain things, and just outright wrong and reckless. These organizations that allow this, they need to be held accountable. It's going to get to a point where, yeah, we're going to see lawsuits, all right. It's going to be from the females. I hope it doesn't come to that, but I think it's already coming to that. Or like I've said, when it comes to all these, open policies of some kind, like open bathrooms, that has backfired big time. And when you allow biological males into female sports, you're allowing them into the locker rooms too. So I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people who say, well, this got nothing to do with football, what people do in the privacy of their own home, things like that. I'm sure people are going to say things like that, but I don't think female athletes are going to care too kindly for now finding out that this person has a fetish that involves the very identity that we were told was stunning and brave, that we were told is, we should have compassion towards. But this person is using it as a fetish. Just like the athletes who found out about Leah Thomas after the fact. So many of these female athletes who have been put in that situation might feel a sense of violation, to be honest. And that's wrong. These organisations need to be held accountable for allowing this. So we had Riley Gaines' response to this saying, "Oh, you mean the man who demanded women accept him into their spaces, or else is a sexual deviant with a hyper-fetishized paraphilia. Shocker." And the reality is every situation is not stunning and brave. These rules allow people with ulterior motives to gain access to women, to gain access to women who are undressing, to gain access to certain contact sports, where they're literally rolling on the floor in close contact with women. That's what these silly rules allow. Even if you think that this has nothing to do with this person playing football, it's still wrong because this person is male. That's it. Someone said, all women, girls, have the power to say no and then it ends. That's it. Over. So why doesn't every single one do this? It's really that simple. No. So yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves and God willing, I will see you in the next video.